is advised.
Welcome to another incredible day in the African bush, and we are with the tallest creature in Africa, and this is Safari Live.
Ready. Standing by.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You are live, you are live.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this, your beautiful, beautiful sunset-ish cloudy safari here from the western fringes of the great Kruger National Park. It's marvelous to have you with us. My name is James Hendry. Out on foot, we have Stefan Winterboer. You'll meet him shortly. You've met Taylor McCurdy out making her debut today. And, of course, Jamie Patterson, the elegant antelope, will be searching for the animals of Djuma, the place that we call home, a wonderful piece of wilderness that we call home. Now, over here, the world's most gorgeous office. Well, come and have a look if you'd like. We've got a number of things to show you in here. So apart from the 3 field guides out there finding the wonders of this place, we have a sort of museum stack going in here, as well as 2 special feeds. The first one is my very best friend in the world, and his name is Ronald the Rover. Now, we'll have a look at his mongoose eye view now. There he is, and he's sitting there with a friend of his called Henry the hippopotamus. Fortunately, his picture seems to be, well, frozen there, so I don't think we'll stay with him for too long. We'll have to give him a bit of a reset, but he is a mover, so he does move around with the aid of this little joystick. So we'll be discovering some of the more detailed things about the bush. We'll be using a microscope, we'll use Ronald the Rover, and we'll have a look at a number of the artifacts that are sitting behind me on the Shelf of Death, aka museum. Right, out on foot, Gendre and Stef. Stef, of course, walking Gendre on camera with his size 14 boots. Let's head across to Stef and find out what his plans are for the afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon, and of course, welcome to the Bushwalk. My name is Stef Winterboer. On camera today is Gendre, and we've got a plan to find lions today, or at least help the effort, is at least what we want to do. The last time we heard of lions in this particular area, they were somewhere here this morning. It was at sunrise at about 6 o'clock. They were roaring their heads off last night, and somewhere in here, I'm certain we're going to either find the lions, or we're going to find some tracks of lions. Now, we are pretty safe out here as long as we keep the wind in check and we know exactly which direction the wind is blowing in, and we're a bit careful about how we step through the bush. When looking for lions, it's always a good idea to scan about 20 or 30 yards in front of you at the moment. You want to be looking at and below bushes and trees. You want to be scanning bushes and trees in front of you, left and right. Hopefully we'll be able to find something here to show you. Now, a lot of dangerous game is found on foot in the Sabi Sands and in fact around Africa, and the reason for that is because we have some of the world's most gifted trackers working over here. And what a tracker is basically a person who has a skill at interpreting the movements of animals through the tracks and the signs left by their passage. And that sounds like a bit of a mouthful, but essentially what it is, it's following footprints, but not footprint for footprint. It's almost putting on a leopard suit or putting on a lion suit and being able to visualize in your head exactly what that animal was doing and why. Ooh. So that isn't an elephant, that isn't a lion that was growling at us, that was an elephant. I don't think it was growling at us, but it could very well be growling at those lions. Now we've got this very low, deep growling noise coming from just in front of us. Definitely elephant. What we're going to try and do and see if we can get a little bit closer safely for you to have a look at these elephants. But we'll be back when we get through this thick stuff over here. In the meantime, we're going to send you over to Jamie, who'd love to say hello.
Good afternoon, and what a fantastic time to be out and about in the African bush with the gentle drops of rain to be soaked up by the thirsty earth. My name is Jamie, and this afternoon I have VM on camera with me, and we've got exciting news. I'm really hoping that this is going to work out the way I have planned. Got a very special surprise up my sleeve, a surprise that I've known about for a little while, but things have just conspired against us being able to get there, and I'm really hoping that perhaps we get a chance to see the dominant male leopard in this area. I'm going to head across to Red Dam on Arathusa, where Tingana has been, and see if he is still there. And just wait, if you're a new viewer, just wait till you see this magnificent male leopard with his big thick shoulders and heavy neck. Obviously, we started off with the retreating tail of an impala, and they've done just that. What Stef said he was going to do earlier, going through some thick bush, well, the impala seemed to have the same idea. On a dark and windy afternoon, without any further ado, let's go see what we can find. It's absolutely beautiful weather. Although it's raining, it's not cold at all. It really is quite a comfortable temperature, and I'm hoping that it might mean a little bit more rain further into the evening. I'm sure you're wondering, for our newer viewers, where we all are and how this all works. Let's head across to James so that he can explain it in a little bit more depth.
So I told you we're on the fringes of the Kruger National Park. So the Kruger National Park looks like a boot, a little bit like that. I am the world's worst artist, I warn you. And we're in a section of land here on the western fringes of the great Kruger National Park. And the Kruger National Park extends into Mozambique on the east like that, and into Zimbabwe on the north like that. Altogether, 3.5 million hectares. That's a hectare, or 8.5 million acres, if you're living when in a place that uses the imperial measure. Now, that's basically the idea. That's the sort of positioning of that. And what I love to do in these situations is to be deeply dramatic when I can. There we are. I'm being dramatic now, you see? Excellent. Now, I will give you a sort of zoomed-in view of where we are and where Jamie's going. I'll show you where she's heading now. That's Djuma over there. Cheetah Plains is over here like that, and Arathusa is there like that. So those are the pieces of this great wilderness that we call home. And I'll just put a little DJ there for Djuma, a CP for Cheetah Plains, and an ARA for Arathusa. Now, Red Dam, which we will colour red because, well, it's called Red Dam, isn't it, is round about there. It's not actually red at all, and with any luck we'll find Tingana the male leopard over there, and he's got spots, obviously. And he's a magnificent fellow. He's a lot better looking than the drawing that I've made there. So that's where Jamie's heading. And then Stef is walking around sort of in that particular region there. This is obviously north up at the top of the map. And then Taylor, I think, is heading off towards an area around here, hopefully to find the great Queen of Djuma. I think that's what her plan is going to be. Perhaps it is. Now, this total area that we traverse is roughly 3,000 hectares or so, which translates to about 7,500 acres. So that's quite a nice big piece of wilderness that we get to look at. There are incredible characters here with us, and I hope that you will meet some of them during the course of this afternoon. Jamie Patterson has got some of those, not at Tingana just yet, but with something that Tingana might eat when it's very small.
Without that caveat that James just added, I did wonder if he was slightly overestimating Tingana's abilities. But absolutely, when a buffalo is young, it's definitely a potential meal for a leopard. But far more fearsome for our poor buffalo herds at the moment is, of course, the presence of our resident lion pride, the Nkuhumas, that have managed to, I think we did a bit of a calculation, a rough calculation, and they've killed something like 29 buffalo in the last 40 to 50 days. They have just been very well fed, and that of course is because the place is teeming with buffalo at the moment. It seems as though the presence of the rain with Djuma has been fortunate in that we've had enough rain for there to be a little bit of grass, which means that it can support these massive breeding herds that move through the area. And it seems as though at the moment, every single corner that we drive around, there's another buffalo herd waiting. Look at this old cow looking at us. I know that she's old. I say she's old. She might not be. She might just be rubbed down. But I think she is quite aged. Just in terms of if you have a look at not just the bald patches around her face, because that can come from rubbing and scratching skin conditions, or even just rubbing the preorbital glands to scent mark. Look at her horns. You can see where they meet in the middle how worn away that has become. I think it's probably safe to say she is quite an old girl. Here's a younger one that just walked in front of her as if to say, hey, give me some attention. And they're all moving through now. Of course, the reason we are so jubilant about the fact that there is this little bit of rain is South Africa is in the grips of a terrible drought. And despite the fact that we've had rain, to say that the drought is over is, I think, a little bit preemptive. And all of the buffalo really struggling to find the food that they need to support themselves. This is quite a small herd, but a buffalo herd can reach up to many, many individuals in number. I would say we're probably looking at about 30 or so buffalo here. Breeding herds can be up to 400, 500, even 1,000 or more. Although we generally see sort of around 400 to 500. You just have a look at that calf there, Viam. Just go to its back. That looks like it might have had an injury that's now healing. And what I first thought was dried blood, I think is actually maybe bits of mud that it's managed to roll into. Buffalo are clever when they've got an injury like that. They'll often go and rub themselves in the thick, glutinous, muddy puddles to help to heal it, and at least keep the flies and the ticks out of it. Well, I'm not going anywhere, since I'm currently in the middle of a serious buffalo roadblock, but while I wait for the buffalo to cross, let's head across to Taylor, who's got a never mind, we're not going to Taylor. It seems as though we're not going to Taylor for now. Instead, we're going to continue to look at our buffalo as they stream across the road in front of us. Hello, guys. Shame. I think it's a scary time to be a buffalo. They are all feeling a little bit thin and undernourished. Makes running away from lions that much harder. Right, now it seems as though we can go across to Taylor. Let's go see what she's found that's come out after the rain.
We have got a giraffe disappearing into the bushes. Hello, everybody. In case my voice seems a little bit unfamiliar, my name is Taylor McCurdy, and on camera with me we've got Brian, and of course, the very famous, the Thumb, who seems to be a thundercloud today. Now, I hope that your predictions are right, Brian and Mr. Thumb, because we need a little bit more rain. We've got a really big giraffe that's now crossing the road behind us. We'll try and position ourselves a little bit better, just so you can get a little view. But off he goes. He's a bit camera shy. He seems that he doesn't want to hang around with us today, but that's not a problem because there are about 30 of them in the vicinity, and we will find another one that is a little bit more cooperative, which is standing just up ahead. So bear with me while I just reposition the vehicle. Now this is a perfect example to show you that we are indeed live and the animals do whatever they please. Now there's another one right up ahead. We're just going to try and sneak up and go very, very quietly and see if we can get a better view. Now, this looks to be like it's a younger male giraffe. Right, I'm going to stop right here. It's okay, big boy. I've parked a little bit on an angle, so you're going to just see Brian just tilt slightly. Now, I don't want to move the vehicle too much just yet. He's a young giraffe bull, and he seems to be not quite as relaxed as the other one that we had, who was much older and definitely had a lot more life experience. So we'll just wait. We'll play the waiting game and see what this giraffe's next move will be. But while we look at this, look at those lovely eyelashes. Isn't that amazing? Don't you think they're eyelashes that any model would be jealous of? They're beautiful, and it's so important for animals, especially animals that like to eat leaves off of thorny trees, to have long eyelashes and very thick eyelashes like that, and that's to help protect them. Now, when they do feed, and hopefully we'll get to see a giraffe feed, and we'll be able to see how they close their eyes when they do feed. Now he's giving us a little bit of an evil eye, just trying to suss us out a bit. And hopefully he'll settle down in just a moment and realize that we really aren't anything to worry about. and maybe he'll start to feed again. It's something to keep an eye out when they are feeding, is those lovely long tongues that they stick out and that they use in order to reach out and grab bits of leaves that are perhaps a bit taller than they are. And I know James Richard, good afternoon to you. You were wondering, do giraffe have more melanin in their tongue than other animals? So, James, I think they do. I think particularly the browsers have a lot more melanin in their tongues. But, of course, the giraffe have got the longest tongues of all the African mammals. And, of course, they need them to reach out. So the reason why they have a little bit more melanin is, firstly, when they're sticking out those tongues quite often. If you had a bright pink tongue, I think it would get sunburned quite often. So that's nice. And just to have a little bit of a darker tongue. Their tongue almost looks like a chow. I don't know if you saw that, but I want to reposition. And also I've heard rumors that the melanin helps make the tongue a little bit stronger too, but let's go up a little bit further ahead. No, Jigger. Sorry, I'm learning to drive Jigger, and she only likes to be turned on in a certain way. Now, let's go a little bit further forward and see if we can't find another little gap to spot this big male giraffe. Oh no. He seems as though he doesn't want to be viewed by us today. He's disappearing. So I think we'll leave him alone and give him a little bit of space. But let's go back over to James, who's in the tent and has got something else for you to see.
Well, now, this, as many of you will know, is Gerald the giraffe, and he's a good friend of mine. He doesn't say a great deal to me, though, so it does feel like something of a one-way relationship in many respects. But, of course, in Gerald, as many of you will know already, there are some stingless bees who are our favourite characters on Safari Live. You know, some might say it's Karula, the Great Queen, perhaps the Nkahuma Pride. You can actually even see them there. But what we're going to do is have a look at them under the microscope, and I quite think that, the Nkahuma Pride are quite nice. The Birmingham boys are all right. Karula's okay with her two little cubs. The elephants are all right. The buffalo are even okay. But these guys, they are the best. Oh, there we are. Look at that. Now, that's the entrance to their waxy little tunnel. Now, I don't think that these stingless bees are particularly enthusiastic builders, necessarily. This is now probably about 2 years old. Now, the bees normally come out as soon as you put the camera on them, so with any luck, they will come out, and you can see where they've been building, just on the edges there, and we can see down a little bit towards the sides. And that's wax, and inside, of course, there'll be a number of bees. And yesterday, in fact 2 days ago, when it was quite hot, we had them outside, and the giraffe was outside, and the sun seemed to inspire them, and there were thousands of stingless bees sitting around this giraffe skull. Whether they all went in or not, or whether they'd come over for some sort of birthday party, I'm not sure what they were doing. Anyway, that's the story there. They're not coming out here, so we'll take the microscope off, and we'll put these back. Now, the other thing I wanted to quickly show you, Taylor's been talking about the rain, so's Jamie. We've been talking about the drought. And the drought is obviously something that we hope is going to break. And one of the animals that hopes desperately that the drought will break is something like this. Now, this is a tortoise, everybody. Well, it's obviously not a living tortoise. It's a well-dead tortoise, and it's part of what used to be a Spix-hinged tortoise. And what I want to just quickly show you under the microscope is the formation of the shell. These tortoises are going to start to come out now with the extra moisture. They're living inside termite mounds, which Stef may well show you during the course of the afternoon. But this particular one was probably killed by something like a ground hornbill. And the ground hornbill is a particularly impressive bird because it's the only bird, I think, that's able to eat or to crack open a tortoise shell. Now, there's the shell you can see there, and you can see the join there of two scutes. And the scute are those little sort of hexagonal pieces that make up the... I'm not sure what you're seeing, if you're seeing me or you're seeing the microscope. Ah, right. There we go. Okay, doing something very strange there. Anyway, there are the scutes. And so as the drought ends, so these tortoises will start to come out. And I'll just show you quickly the one that this came off. There it is there. and that's the Speke's hinged tortoise. Right, now we're going to head off for a short break, and while we do that, of course, Taylor will be searching for the lions, Jamie will be searching for the leopards, this tortoise will continue to smell, and Stef will hopefully find something equally interesting to show you. Don't go away, we'll see you very shortly. Now, internet audience, there we are. I'm not sure what happened with the microscope there. I shall have to have a word with the very dangerous Russian in the final control. Anyway, let's head across to Jamie, find out how her waiting game for Tingana is going, and I'll catch up with you shortly.
And look at what we've just stumbled across, a female steenbok. Now, as you can see, this little shy, there we go. It's about to say shy and secretive antelope. But there she goes out into the open, and this is very interesting. This is not a healthy-looking steenbok, which you might think would be to be expected during a drought. But generally, I've noticed that the steenbok seem to be coping quite well with the harsh conditions that we've been experiencing. And this particular female is covered in flies. I don't know what it is that's attracted them to her. She's also got a couple of bald patches around her eyes. She doesn't look all that healthy. She looks quite thin. But then, if we have a little closer look, which I'm hoping we can manage, might be a bit tricky because she's just disappeared. Whoa. I'm going backwards, but not so much on the road. Oops. Let me just try and relocate the place that I meant to drive on and try and go backwards a little bit. Get back to the bird that's calling in a moment. Ah, come on, little steenbokkie. We generally get to know the different steenbok that we see in these areas because we see them on a regular basis. She is there, and I think she might move slightly more out into the open, just because they do have set territories. So, in other words, you'll find them in the same place. Oh, come on, girl. That's exactly the way I wanted to see you, but not behind the trees. Look closely between her back legs if you can. I think she's lactating. I think she's recently given birth to a little baby steenbok, which is one of the absolute cutest baby animals in the bush. I mean, these are one of our smallest antelope. Come on, girl. Here we go. There, you can just see them quite prominent between her back legs. There we go. I've got a view there. I'm relatively certain that somewhere in her little territory, the steenbok has got a tiny baby hidden. Our steenbok, when they do have little ones, for the first few weeks of that steenbok's life, they will be hidden away behind dense vegetation that could well be somewhere here. They've learnt very, very quickly, and it must be an instinct actually, rather than learnt behavior, to go and to sit and to hide whenever mom is away. So they'll go and they'll be completely still, and you can walk within a couple of meters, a couple of yards of a little baby steenbok, and it will not move. That being said, sometimes they get confused, and I've had that happen once before, where I've gone walking and a little baby steenbok has come wandering out. It wasn't a steenbok, it was a duiker. That's not true, it was a duiker, but I imagine that the principle applies to both. They're both very similar little tiny antelope, and a little duiker came out and started calling to me, which turned out to be a very big mistake, because then a cheetah shot past and grabbed it right in front of me, which I have to tell you was a serious surprise. It's amazing the way that the bush comes with all sorts of surprises. Now, Mandy, you want to know what the current season is while I look for the animals that I saw disappearing around this corner earlier. It is not really early spring. We don't, in South Africa, particularly in the Lowveld, we don't really have the traditional 4 seasons. We have 2. We have dry season and we have wet season. We're now in our wet season, which is technically summer. We're in summer. I don't think we can call it spring anymore, though. We do have some nice, beautiful flowers coming through, which hopefully we'll be able to find for you. And here we go. This is the animal I wanted to share with you all. And welcome back on your live safari experiences. For those of you that have just joined us, can you believe that you're watching something happen right here and right now on Djuma Private Game Reserve, right up in the top northeastern corner of South Africa? My name is Jamie, and I'll be showing you around, showing you some of the animals and getting to know them all a little bit better. Starting off with this beautiful sounder of warthogs. And I didn't use the word beautiful by mistake. Okay, so they're not winning any beauty pageants, but there's still a certain attractiveness to these little creatures. Now, before the break, you were chatting with James about the effects of the drought and how it's all impacted the various animals. We had that buffalo herd as well from earlier. This is another animal that has really struggled. Luckily, it's really nice to see, actually, that these warthogs are in good condition as they move off. Part of the pig family, of course, as you may have gathered, but definitely not to be confused with a domestic pig. And there's only two that we get here, part of the pig family. We get a bush pig and we get a warthog. A warthog is the one that we see during the day. Now, they can be incredibly docile animals, but they can also be incredibly dangerous. They get used to people very, very quickly. And I actually know at least two people who are going through physiotherapy, or have been going through physiotherapy over the last few years, to recover from injuries inflicted by warthog. And it's not because they're unduly aggressive at all. They're not aggressive, they're not angry, but because they get used to people very quickly, you often find them in people's gardens, in the gardens of camps, because of course those sort of areas are tended. The plant life is better for them to go and eat. And whenever they get cornered or trapped, they become very, very dangerous with their sharp bottom tusks. And although it doesn't look like a big animal, they are hefty creatures and they're capable of moving at phenomenal speeds. Now, remember how James mentioned that we were with that herd of buffalo and that perhaps a Tingana might be interested in a young buffalo. This is an animal that Tingana has made a speciality out of hunting. Right, I'm going to head on and see if we can find that dominant male leopard that I'm talking about. In the meantime, let's jump on board with Taylor and find out what she has to show you.
We found one of the most overlooked species of antelope in Africa. And like I said earlier, I'm sure some of you are wondering who this strange voice is and what that blonde ponytail is doing bouncing around the screen. So I'll just quickly introduce myself again. My name is Taylor, and if you haven't met the thumb yet, have a look at this crazy thing. It's Brian's thumb. Amazing, who is a stormy rain cloud today. But let's have another look at these wonderful impala. Now, the reason why I say, and as I say this, of course, they're now disappearing into the distance, but I have no doubt that we will definitely they will pop up again and we will see them. Now, something quite amazing about this common antelope in Africa is the fact that they are kind of prehistoric, I suppose you could call them. They have not changed for over 6.5 million years, since the Miocene period. Can you believe that? Now, as you can imagine, when you're an impala, or when you're an antelope that hasn't changed too much over that lengthy period of time, you must have some unique characteristics. And you can see them quite nicely. I'm going to show you something that no other antelope in the world has. If you go down, Brian, can we try and have a look at those fluffy black patches on the back of their feet? Can you see them as she is moving through the vegetation? Those black spots on her hindquarters, you see that? It's quite difficult now, but I'm sure you got a quick glimpse. Those are called metatarsal glands, and like I said, these are only found on impala, and those are a type of scent glands. And what they do is, when the impala are startled or perhaps something is chasing them, what they will do is they'll often jump high into the air and they tend to disperse, and when they give those back legs a kick up into the air, it releases a spray in the form of a pheromone. And what they're able to do is they're able to relocate each other after perhaps something has given them a fright or given chase to them and they've all had to run away. Now, these of course are only theories, but I think it's quite a good one and something quite unique thick that no one else has in the African bush. Isn't that amazing? Now, they've all moved into the thicket. I was mentioning to Brian, actually, that it's funny how the impala are not eating any of the grass at the moment. They seem to be enjoying all the lovely new greenery that you can see on your screen. That's just popping off the branches of the trees. Isn't that beautiful? Well, I'm sure we're going to see some more impala again. And while I look for some more, let's go to Stef, who's got an elephant on foot.
We finally found those elephant. And I'm speaking very softly because the bush is very thick here. But they must be about 10 or 15 elephant right here. And I must be honest with you, it's so exciting. It gives you this, I don't know, anxious feeling, but it's exciting and it's fun, but it's scary at the same time. And it's quite weird, but what we got to try and do here is show you, but stay out of their sight and out of their smell. So essentially we can overstay our welcome a little bit, but I think we're okay here where we are. Now, the aim of what we try and do here is not to scare these animals. We actually don't even want them aware of our presence. It's sometimes a little bit more difficult than it would seem. I think they're going to come down this wash or this crossing in front of us. It might give us a little bit of time to see them again. But very thick bush, and I'm just making sure that the wind is constantly in our favor. Easily now about 10 or 15 elephant. I tell you, there's things that give you a bigger rush.
Right, everybody, never mind, here we go. That is, of course, one of the trials of working in the African bushveld, and that is high-definition signal coming to you live from the wild sometimes brings with it a few challenges, and those challenges are what Stef is experiencing now. It is not that he has been run over by an elephant. He is, in fact, just having some trouble with signal. He's absolutely fine, and we'll join him shortly. Now, this, of course, nice link to the elephant is the fact that it also has tusks made of the same stuff, also ivory. And the other animal that has that, of course, is the hippopotamus. They all have ivory tusks, and these could, I suppose, be used for the same things that ivory are, but they don't tend to have the same kind of aura about them that elephant tusks do. Anyway, you were looking at a warthog with Jamie a little bit earlier on. This is a big boar warthog. The one that Jamie had, of course, was a sow, I think. And this is a big boar, and I know that because of the size of the tusk that he once had. And just look at the amazing kind of arrangement of the organs on this head. The eyes and the nose, there we are on the same plane. So if this elephant wants to hide, if it wants to hunker down, not elephant, it's a warthog, isn't it, David? Yes, sure. Warthog wants to hide, all it does is just drop into the grass, and it can see and smell and hear without popping its head up. So you've often, I'm sure as a kid, tried to hide from people, and when you pop your head up over the parapet, obviously we can't see and smell and hear on the same plane in the same way that this animal can, but that's because we don't have to spend our lives trying to avoid Tingana, the male leopard, which, of course, if he gets hold of you, it will be a deeply unpleasant experience indeed. So that is the warthog skull. And the other thing you were looking at with Taylor is the ancient antelope, the impala. Now, although the impala I'm going to show you does not come, in fact, from the Miocene period, it might look like it comes from the Miocene period, given its age, but this is a male impala skull. And these wormy things here, you don't need to worry about. They're not actually part of the impala. They are a caterpillar that eats the keratin sheath. So in much the same horn that rhino horn is, or much the same substance that rhino horn is made of, so this keratin sheath that covers the impala's horn is made of that, and a caterpillar likes to eat these. It's called a keratophagous or keratin-eating caterpillar or moth. So that is the impala, and we've seen the warthog. Stef is back online with his elephants. Let's go and take a look.
We are back online. And I'm still speaking softly. These elephants are still literally within 15, 20 yards of where we're standing at the moment. There's a slight breeze blowing from them to us. So we're still okay. These things do change. And they can change at a moment's notice. As I was saying before you left us, the object here is not to be seen by these animals. It's to share a moment in their lives, unobserved. But this female's getting a bit close. Okay, what I want us to do is back away so that we walk down that path. And let's just stay safe. Okay, we're gonna move. Okay, we're gonna move. Alright, let's just stop there. That female with her baby is the one that was giving me. Alright, come. Go. Okay, go. We still 100% safe here where we are? We're just getting out of their path, that's all. Okay, creating distance, that's all they want. This is so cool. Alright, come on. Okay. They're moving past us now. They're not coming towards us, so they're moving past us. They didn't really know what was happening. That was a close call, but I don't think they knew we were there. We just so happened to be in their path. Awesome. Alright, so now we're going to create distance. And we're going to go in one direction, let them go in the other. Yeah, I can see them moving away now. Alright, good. Let's cross here and get completely out of the way. Whew, I tell you, nothing better. It's lovely. Alright, we're going to send you back to James in the tent. We're going to get out of this thick bush. We'll catch up with you in a little bit.
That is such exciting stuff. It really is, and it makes me feel slightly jealous. We do have elephants coming around the tent every so often, but to be on foot in the wilderness is the ultimate experience of touching the earth and being part of Mother Nature. Now, from what you've seen there, you can't really get an impression of the size of an elephant because Stef is obviously slightly different perspective. That's a buffalo. We're not going to look at that. Let's have a look at this particular bone here, weighing in at 44 pounds, roughly 20 kilograms. This is the elephant's humerus. Now, the humerus is your funny bone, of course, and it's basically the top part of your arm. There it is. This is one bone for the elephant. So you can imagine how unspeakably enormous an elephant bull must be. That's its humerus. Standing next to me, I'm 5'8", so this thing is probably, well, about 3'3" odd. An elephant, a big bull elephant that would have had one of these, would probably stand at about 14 feet at the shoulder. So an absolutely enormous animal. And you can see there how incredibly skillfully he extracted himself from that situation without the elephants having any idea that he was there. And that, of course, is the whole point of our being out here. It's not to be brave and macho and show how dangerous things are. Quite on the contrary, it's to become an observer in the bush and to become a piece of the wilderness that has no effect on the animals around it, but at the same time, to feel that vulnerability that our ancestors would have. Remember, people have been walking the African plains for, us and our ancestors for over 2 million years, and walking around in a wildlife area like this with lions and buffalo and leopards and elephants, it just gives you a feeling of real kind of reality, and it's a wonderful, wonderful feeling. Okay, we're going to take a very short break now, again, and I'm going to put this back on its shelf. When you come back, Stef will still be with the elephants, but he might find you something really small and exciting. Taylor will hopefully be with some lions, and Jamie, with any luck, with Tingana at Red Dam, the dominant male leopard of the area that we work in. Come back shortly. Bye-bye. hello, internet audience. We're still with us, of course. I got a little bit tongue-tied there because Kirsten started laughing in my ear. I don't know why she did that. I don't think I'm very funny in the slightest. Anyway, let me put this back here. Right, there we are. Now, Taylor has not found the lions, but she has found something that stingless bees like to live in. Let's go and take a look at them while I catch my breath.
We keep getting giraffes disappearing into the bushes today. It seems as though the animals think they're quite funny and are playing a game of hide and seek, but we will win. I've seen you. There it is. Just poking his head up. And one of my absolute favorite descriptions in the local language, now I'm probably not saying it very well, but James will probably be able to say it a little bit better, but I was always taught that a giraffe's name in the local language is Dlamiti. Now, whether that's correct or not, I hope it is, but the translation is even more beautiful. It means horse with its head above the trees. Don't you think that's a fantastic description? I do. I think it's wonderful. And off he goes. But let's try and keep up with him a little bit. This is a different giraffe from what we saw earlier. He looks to be a lot older. And maybe he's not going to be as shy. Let's just show him. It's going to open up a little bit. Perhaps you feel a little bit more comfortable when he's out in the open. But we'll just sneak over. It's okay, Mr. Giraffe. We only want to look at you. I'm going to try and get a little bit ahead of him. I think that's going to be my plan. Maybe he'll think that we're just passing by. We caught you. Hello. We caught you very briefly. Look at that oxpecker sitting on top of his head. It's like he's going to a fancy hat party, but he isn't. Well, that was another giraffe. Sometimes things just don't go as planned. He's actually running away from us now. There he is there. He's very uncomfortable with us. I'm not sure what's wrong with the giraffe today. None of them want to be seen. And aren't you jealous as that giraffe licks his nose? Don't you wish you had a lovely long tongue that was almost about 40 centimeters? That's quite long. So just longer than the length of an average ruler. And he's able to do many things, not only use it to pull leaves off of a tree, but to also clean his nose. Isn't that quite nice? And the oxpecker's gone. I think the oxpecker got thrown off as he galloped through all the thick vegetation. We can see he's moving through now. And it seems like he's going to go down in the drainage line. And he doesn't want to be seen. Well, we won't pressure him too much. We'll let him go about his day. And that's something that we have to do. We've got to slowly try and habituate these animals. So try and always leave on a positive note. Just let them see you. Perhaps let them settle down. And then that's enough for a day. Move off. Carry on. Come back the next day, and hopefully they keep having positive interactions with the vehicles, and then they learn to not be bothered by us at all. Well, that's what I'm hoping. But there's a lot of giraffe around at the moment, which is wonderful. I'm sure we'll find one that will actually want to be seen and want to be filmed today. But we're going to carry on. So, I had a very quick look around for Karula, but it doesn't seem like I can pick up on any of her tracks, and she is known to zigzag through the reserve. If you're wondering who's Karula, Karula is the queen. She is the most amazing leopardess we see in this area, and she's got 2 young cubs. So she's possibly in a drainage. If she is, I'm going to keep searching for her. And while I keep looking for Karula, the queen, let's go back to Jamie and see how her afternoon is doing.
I was just thinking about Karula as Taylor mentioned her name. This is where we had that incredible sighting with Ellies Tingana and a whole pride of... Oh, hi. Speaking of, hello, mister. Well, that was a very nice surprise, wasn't it, Liam? That was a lot easier than I expected. Oh, there we go. Mr. Tingana himself, with his newly acquired scratch across the top of his nose. Only had that for about a month or so. Looking very full-bellied, which immediately makes me think, where is this kill he's clearly been feeding on? Am I parked under it, Liam? I don't think so. What a lovely surprise. I'm truly chuffed. That was as easy as it was. I wasn't expecting it to be. It never is. Except sometimes on days like today when it is just that easy. And he is looking thoroughly peaceful and as if he's swallowed a beach ball. Oh. Has it been a tough few days, mister? Been a long time since we've seen you. This is fantastic. And just look at this, what an incredible sighting for you to enjoy on your live safari experience. If you have just joined us, my name is Jamie. I have VM on camera with me, and that is a Tingana, the male leopard. But before we go into that in a little bit more detail, because this is live, it's happening right here and right now in the Greater Kruger National Park area of South Africa. That means that you can send through your questions, and you can do that using the hashtag SafariLive on Twitter. So let's say you have a question about why this leopard is sleeping, for example. I'm assuming he is sleeping at the moment. Let's have a look. Why is the leopard sleeping? Why does he look so full? All of these are questions that you can send through. Why does the leopard have spots? Would be some possible suggestions for questions you might want to send through. Perhaps you've always wondered the answer as to why he's sleeping and why he's panting like that. Look at it, you can see he's breathing very, very fast. He's clearly got a meal somewhere here. Or he has had a meal at some point relatively recently. Look at that belly. This is magnificent. For those of you for whom this is the first meeting with Mr. Tingana, he is the dominant male leopard of most of the area that we drive around in, so we see him probably the most often. He shares a territorial boundary with a massive male called the Anderson male. And there he is snoozing away. He's panting like that because his belly is so full and that digestive process is sort of breaking down the meat very, very quickly that he's just eaten, so he's hot. He's hot and he's panting and his belly is so full that he barely has room to breathe. This is wonderful. The last time I saw Tingana, he wasn't looking terrible, but he definitely wasn't looking his usual powerful self. He'd been mating with a female leopard called Shadow, the daughter of Karula, that Taylor's looking for, and he was just thoroughly worn out from the exertions of his previous few days, which is why it is so pleasant to see him looking well and happy and positively chubby. Hey, mister, it's been a while. In fact, the last time I think I saw Tingana was when James was in the Mara Triangle, and he was hunting next to the lodge. So it is very special to see him. There is a... oh, fly! It's good to see I'm not the only one being plagued by flies this afternoon. I've had a fly that's been very determinedly trying to fly into my ear since I encountered those buffalo. It's actually hitched a ride and come with us all the way to Arathusa. It's nice to see that it's not just me. Oh, there we go, one very well-fed, very contented male leopard. Now, when I say he is massive, he is probably around 150 so pounds. So he really is a very, very large boy. Curious one. Very, very good question. Yes, you are absolutely right. This is, of course, the perfect weather for big cat viewing. Hello, my boy. Curious one wants to know if Tingana has to go and remark his territory after the rain. And yes, it's one of the big reasons why, apart from the obvious reasons, we love rain, because it washes away all of the scent marks of the various territorial animals, including the big cats, which is why very often, about a day or so after the rain, you'll see the territorial cats, the leopards and the male lions moving about and scent marking their territory. And since most of the scent marking consists of urine spraying, they do have to go and do it all again from scratch. Now, he will be at some point, in fact, probably this evening, depending on what he's been eating. What has he been eating? I can't work this one out. It must be down in near the water hole or somewhere in there. He's definitely eaten something, but depending on the speed that he finishes it off, he will be up and about this evening, scent marking and giving that incredible call that leopards do, that deep sawing sound. I thought that one was quite good, actually. Wasn't that bad, VM? VM's skeptical. Okay, fair enough. Fine, you all do a leopard impression. Alright, I'm going to go and reposition to get a better view of Mr. T's beautiful face. While we do, let's head back across to James so that he can explain some of the key identifying features of our loved leopards.
I'm afraid I didn't hear Jamie doing her sawing noise of the leopard, but I'd quite like to hear that. Maybe I'll ask her to do it again. Now, one of the things that we use to identify leopards are the spot patterns beneath their noses and just above the whisker line. So this, if you'll excuse the drawing, is Tingana's mouth area. That can be sort of blood dripping out from the warthog that he's just eaten, and his teeth, if he didn't have lips, would be sticking out like that. Now, what we have is the whiskers, of course, all over here. There they are. And then just above them, each leopard has a unique sort of pattern of spots, and Tingana is known as a 5-5 male leopard, and he's got a kind of arrangement that looks a little bit like this. And this is a very poor representation, but it's just for diagram. So he's got 5 there and 5 there, and we refer to his right, our left, and then his left and our right, and we refer to the left basically as you'd read a book, so 5-5 male leopard. And that's how, if you were driving around here, you spotted a male leopard and you wanted to know who it was, that's often one of the best ways to tell, because those spots don't change. As the old saying goes, David? Leopards do not change their spots. That is correct. Well done. Now, I want you to just be very quiet for a second. And distantly, you may have heard ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. That is a bearded woodpecker, and we are surrounded by the signs of the spring and the signs that the drought is perhaps about to break. It's quite warm. There's a lot of sort of moisture hanging in the air, and that brings the birds out. There are two bearded woodpeckers tapping on either side of me, and they're tapping on hollow branches in order to sort of mark their territory. And it's a wonderful sound, and also the miserable sound of the black cuckoo. It's very sad indeed. It says, "I'm so sad." Stef isn't sad. Let's go and find out why.
Well, we finally made it out of that thick foresty environment we were in with those elephants. And I must be honest with you, I'm still a little bit fluttery inside with all the adrenaline. It was awesome. But on that note, I just want to introduce one of the other partners, or the only other partner we have on the walk. This is Herbert. He's our game scout. Now, Herbert is basically in charge of keeping us safe, being our eyes and ears when we are engaging with you through the lens. And so we're a team of 3 out here. That's how we walk around. But, you know, I'm still wanting to try and hash elephant sighting with you, and to be honest with you, I think it's a good time to do the one-word Twitter, the handle, and to basically try and encapsulate what you were feeling with me out in that elephant sighting. For me, I think I'd like to use the one word excited, perhaps, or anxious at the point there at the end when we were getting away. But why don't you decide what your one word captures what you were sharing with us with those elephants? You can send it through to the hashtag Safari Live, and we'll share it with everybody else that's watching over the next couple of minutes, I suppose, until the end of the show. All right, so now we're going to carry on while you're thinking of your one word which best describes that particular feeling. We're going to carry on. We're now walking exactly in the opposite direction to where those elephants were going, thank goodness, and we are still looking for those lion from this morning. Last time we heard anything from them, they were roaring in this very area. We did find 1 or 2 fresh tracks of a female lioness heading in this direction, and what we're basically going to do now is look at every single game path. Lion are quite routine-like in their way of moving through the bush, and they like to walk on game paths for 2 reasons. One, it's quiet because there's fewer sticks, and secondly, animals move up and down on these highways basically through the bush. And so if you're hungry and you eat meat like lions do, this would be one of the best ways of finding yourself some dinner. Now, we can basically see a game path just here. I'm going to show you what one looks like. This is a game path. You can see there's a much higher concentration of footprints in this area relative to anywhere else. All right, and that is what we're going to be tracking on. What I'm looking for is a lion track, and if we find one, you will be the first one to know. Anyway, we're going to send you through to Taylor, who's got a nest of some kind for you.
I think this is going to be my theme today, is bird nests. And well done, Brian, who spotted this crested barbet nest as we came through the drainage line. Off it goes. So that was actually a crested barbet that you were looking at that has hollowed out the inside of this marula tree. Isn't that amazing? Now, it's obviously very difficult to see inside, so we're just going to have to wait for the barbet to poke its head out so we can have a little look. And I'm uncertain how long this barbet has been here for. Perhaps it's been here for a few weeks already. Perhaps it's a new nest. We've been finding a lot of new nests over the last few days. So it's definitely breeding season for most of the birds. Now, they can lay anywhere between 2 and 4 eggs. So I'm unsure, very uncertain as to how many is in there. But that looked like an adult to me. It had all its adult feathers. And the nesting sort of, the incubation period is normally not too long. It's normally around anywhere between 19 and about 30 days or so, depending on the species of bird. So I'm sure it's somewhere in between there. And it'll be quite exciting to follow the story of this barbet. Now, I must tell you, a few days ago, I found a magpie shrike nest not too far from where we are now. And I'd actually really like to go and see how they're doing, because it has been a few days. Wouldn't that be quite exciting if I can actually remember where that nest was? Now that's always the interesting part. So we're definitely going to head around there. But let's hang tight just for a few more minutes, and let's see if this little barbet perhaps pokes its head out again. Are you going to stick it out for us? Very shy. It's lovely and warm in there. Really great spot to nest. I'm sure definitely out of the wind, nice and sheltered. However, it is a far drop from the ground. This is a pretty impressive marula tree that we're looking at. At all those lovely new green leaves. And it's actually a very well-used marula tree, not only by the crested barbet, but if we go down the trunk of the tree, have a look at all that mud that's been smeared on over there. Now, I suspect that there's an array of animals that have been using this tree after they've had a nice mud bath. You can see lower down there's a few patches of mud, so perhaps that could be from a buffalo, perhaps from a rhino, perhaps from an hippopotamus. And if you go further up the tree, you can see that mud spreads very high, and that can indeed only be from my favorite animal in the whole wide world, the elephant. And one of the reasons why they obviously go and have mud baths is to cool themselves down, but also that clay that they throw onto themselves suffocates any ectoparasites that are bothering them. And they normally come back after they've had a mud bath and find a sturdy tree, especially if you're an elephant, you need something that's strong, and they have a little scratch. And I suspect if we were to go and have a closer look, we may even see some parasites. It looks like it was quite fresh. It doesn't look too old, some of the mud. It's a bit crusty, but maybe from the last few days we've had some exceptionally hot weather. It's just this morning that's been a little bit chilly. I can't see any parasites there, but it's not uncommon to find ticks that have died and are wedged in the lovely fissured bark that the marula tree has to offer. And it seems as though our barbet doesn't want to come out anymore. How sad is that? Mr. Barbet, let's see if we can get very lucky and have one more little look. Or Mr. or Mrs. Barbet, whoever's in there. I'm sure it's probably the female that's doing most of the incubation. Generally, the role of the male is to feed the female while she sits on the eggs. But there are a few special exemptions when it comes to this. Of course, there's always exceptions to every rule. Right, it doesn't seem as though the barbet is coming out to say hello, but keep watching, because I think we're going to be back to visit this barbet. But let's go back to Jamie, who has got the king of the Sabi Sand.
perfect timing as the king of the Sabi Sands makes his way down to Red Dam for a drink. Let's go and catch up with him. I've got to go all the way around. So everybody hold on tight as we go and watch him quench his thirst. With such a full belly, I'm sure he's feeling particularly thirsty. Luckily for him, he has managed to settle himself right next to a waterhole. Our Tingana was the first leopard I ever saw in the Sabi Sand when I arrived here on my job interview. So in a way, he's got quite a special memory attached to him. Where are you going, boy? Oh, there he is. Here. Everybody hold on. Let's hope we don't get stuck in the mud. Let's get a nice view of him around here. Oh my goodness. Let's hope we don't fall into the water. Okay, here we go. The king of the Sabi Sand, indeed. And Xylo in Hong Kong, welcome to the Sunset Safari. Lovely to have you on board. I think it's the first time I've personally heard your name. You want to know if leopards will, or big cats will pant to cool themselves down in the same way that cats and dogs do, especially dogs. And yes, absolutely they do. So if it were a slightly warmer day, if he perhaps was lying in the shade with the sun beating down upon him, he may well start to pant, and you'd see his tongue sticking out, because of course these big cats can't sweat. They've got to cool down in other ways. Our leopards are slightly more resilient to high temperatures than lions. And I've seen Tingana, bizarrely. I mean, it's so funny. You read all of the books and they'll say the chances of a big cat moving around in the heat of the day is very, very slim. I've seen Tingana wandering around when it's well over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Here he goes, lapping away. He's clearly very, very thirsty. He's found himself the perfect puddle on the edge of the water. I don't think we should get any closer. I think we might risk getting stuck, which is what I would prefer to avoid. You can see him battle-scarred, scratches under his eye, and of course that large one across his nose. And that's just the price that a dominant leopard pays for being dominant in an area, for ruling over an area. I suspect, though, that scar across the top of his nose, and we'll never know for sure, of course. I suspect, though, that was not caused in battle with another dominant male leopard. I think that was caused in a slightly different way while he was mating with one of the females. Tingana is much sought after in the leopard world, and there was a stage where Karula, Shadow, and a female leopard called Tani, who is Shadow's sister, were all seen mating with him in a very short period of time, and I think that's where that scratch comes from. And I think it was probably Shadow, since we know that he was mating with her around the time that he acquired that scratch across his nose. I could be wrong. It could be that he was mating with Shadow and he actually got into a fight with another leopard to defend her from him. Now, that's a possibility. But leopard mating can get very aggressive, and often the female will turn around and smack the male in the face. I've seen Karula get her claw hooked into Tingana's skin before, resulting in much growling as they attempted to disengage from each other. I suspect that scar might have come from Shadow. Oh, this is one thirsty leopard. Now, for those of you that know that Taylor was out looking for the royal family, for Karula and for her two cubs, Hosana and Shungile, Catherine, you were wondering if perhaps Tingana is the father of those two gorgeous little cubs. And just by the way, before I go into answering that, there is a three-banded plover wandering around in front of him. Sorry, Catherine. Yes, there is a... Yes! Awesome! How amazing is that? There he goes, giving us the impression of that deep sawing sound. Absolutely amazing. I was hoping he'd do that. I just said to Viam, remember the time we saw him in the middle of the day and he'd just eaten and he started to soar? And it goes back to... oh, flop. It goes back to what we were saying earlier about reinforcing their territorial boundaries, that deep leopard roar. That's what that was all about. That was the leopard roaring. And you can see why it's called sawing. It sounds like somebody sawing through a particularly challenging piece of wood. Sorry, Catherine, you got thoroughly interrupted by Tingana. Oh, flop. Was that exhausting, that whole experience, mister? My apologies. Yes, there is a good chance that he is the father of our beloved Shungile and Hosanna, 2 8-month-old leopard cubs that we see on a relatively regular basis and that we have come to know and love. He was seen mating with Karula here. In fact, Catherine, strangely enough, I remember it vividly as sitting in this, probably almost in this exact position, except that Red Dam was slightly lower in terms of the level of water. Yes, I'm sorry, I'm talking about your love life. My apologies. He was mating with Karula, and that was when the Tsalalas chased them off in different directions. So there is a very good chance. But of course, we never know with leopards. Female leopards are mysterious creatures, and they will attempt to mate with as many males as possible. Well, of course, speaking about the amount of water that we have now, having just seen Tingana having a jolly good drink, let's go and have a look at Stef, who has a slightly different perspective.
Yes, indeed. Although I must be honest with you, this doesn't have as much water in as Red Dam does at the moment. For those of you who just joined us, well, welcome to the Bushwalk. We are on foot here at Djuma Private Game Reserve, and I am Stefan Winterboer, and right now we're looking for tracks of anything that came to make use of the last little bit of water that you see in this natural pan that we have here. That there will be attractive to animals. Whoop, we've got an elephant right here. Okay, so just stand still, everybody. Don't panic. All right, we've got a young elephant that just popped out of the woodwork over here and didn't even hear him coming. How quiet is that? Gee whiz. I'll tell you, elephant today are definitely giving my adrenal gland some workout. So he popped out here probably about 10 yards away from us. Anyway, let's carry on with the tracking thing that we were doing now that we say goodbye to Ellie. All right, so what these... Now, let me just gather my thoughts over here a little bit while I wait for myself to calm down a little bit. And while I'm doing that, I just want to share what Caroline condensed her elephant sighting that we had a little bit earlier into one word. Caroline, you said your word is exhilarating. And I must be honest with you, I must share that with you. I think everybody else did as well. Exhilarating is probably, it's not quite fear, is it? And it's not quite basically... complacency. I'm just busy talking about being complacent. I'm just listening over my shoulder here, hearing some bushes rustle. But apart from the elephant, which is real, there's something over here that has been left by the passage of an animal, obviously coming to investigate the last little bit of water. That is the pug mark of an African lion. Now those are its toes, has 4 toes, and we can actually see what foot that is. I'll be able to tell you whether it's the left or the right foot by putting my hands, or my fingers at least, into that track. As you can see, it doesn't quite fit, does it? Like that, but like this, it fits. So this was the front right foot of an African lion, probably a female judging from that size. Male lion's feet are about that size, so much bigger than my hand is a male lion's foot, probably ending about here. Interesting. Alrighty, well that's this mud puddle done. I'll tell you, I now feel like I need to have eyes in the back of my head. Let's walk a little bit this way and see if that elephant was being followed or if he precedes another herd. He must have heard us playing around in the water and came to investigate what we were doing. It's a young male, not a very old elephant at that. I don't see any others over here, so it's possible that that elephant was on his own. Young male elephant do get separated from their herd from about 12 years old to about 18 years old. And a bull elephant will gradually be spending more and more time away from his natal herd to a point where he'll almost become a lone wanderer. Quite often these adolescent and immature bulls will then join up with much older bulls, which are not that competitive for mating rights with the females anymore. And what happens then is that they learn from one another. The older bull gets a young askari, basically, who can protect him and has better eyes and ears for the old guy, and the older one gives the younger one all his experience, where to go with what threat, what to do when, what type of season and all that sort of thing. But anyway, it doesn't look like there's any more elephant over here. We're going to get back into what I feel like going into some open patches. We're going to send you over to James. He's got that rover of his to play with.
Now, we of course have been talking lots about predators. Tingana, the wonderful male leopard. Stef's looking for lions. Oft forgotten, the little predators. This is a little meat-eating creature called Polyrhynchus the ant. A very sweet little name for a creature that, a creature that belies its sort of voracious capacity to hunt meat, and it lives in a little colony underneath a tree. I don't know where this one lives at the moment. At the moment, he might live in my mouth, because one of the great joys, of course, of living out in the bush is afternoon tea. If you've ever had afternoon tea out in the bush, you'll never want to have it anywhere else. And then certainly one of the things that inspired me to come and live in the wild was experiences with my family doing that as a child. And there's no tea in the tent, but Polyrhynchus is in fact edible. Polyrhynchus's abdomen tastes like a lemon drop. Now, I'm not sure that I'm going to eat Polyrhynchus live. I think it might offend some of you. Anyway, if you would like me to eat him live, I will do that. My name is James Hendry, and you can tweet through whether you want me to eat him or not at hashtag Safari Live, and we'll put it to the popular vote. Look, there are lots of them around. I'm feeling bad about it right now, so I don't think I'm going to eat Polyrhynchus. Anyway, one of the other predators that we have out here, Polyrhynchus the ant. Now, come back inside with me, David, if you don't mind. Just be careful of the tripwires there. We have this rover out, and he, like Stef, is looking at a pan, at some water. I'm just trying to wrangle Polyrhynchus at the moment. Now, let's have a look at what Ronald is looking at. There he's looking at the hippopotamus, which doesn't appear to be moving. Now, the last time you saw Ronald, he was having a bit of trouble, but now you can see that he is entirely mobile. So we just do a little drive around the edge of the pan here, and you can see many, many animals have come down to drink here. Hippo, buffalo, elephant, nyala, impala, all of the antelope species that we get here, they all come down and have a drink, especially during the drought. Now let's see if we can rouse Henry slightly. We don't want to frighten him, but we're not going to frighten him sufficiently to drive him out of the water. But it would be nice if he pretended at least to be vaguely alive, which he certainly doesn't seem to be. Hello, Henry. No, there's a very slight twitching of an ear every so often. Anyway, that's what Henry's doing there. Sorry, there was an animal walking out there. It's gone behind a bush. We won't worry about that. Let's head across to Jamie and find out what the Prince of Cats is doing.
The Prince of Cats is on the move, and it seems as though we timed our arrival perfectly. There's a good chance if we'd come through a little bit later, we might not even have found him, as he starts to move away from the road and across into some dense vegetation. Well, hopefully we can keep up with him. There is another vehicle up at the top of the hill, which is why we're not rushing round to the top. We'll be able to follow as he goes along. So let's just get a view as he wanders up. Here he goes. Look at that massive dewlap. We were talking about the flap of skin underneath his neck. He is a very, very powerful leopard. Okay, let's go and catch up with him. Hopefully he decides to call once again. I wonder if he's on his way back to this kill that I think he must have somewhere. And Nidha, while we reposition, you want to know if leopards will hunt even if they are full. And the answer is yes. And interestingly enough, I wonder if he hasn't come through in this direction on his way to a herd of impala that I saw earlier. So all cats are opportunists, and the fact that they have full bellies will not preclude the chance that they are going to hunt if the opportunity presents itself. They might not be as keen on the whole idea, they might not be as enthusiastic, so they won't actively go and seek out food, but absolutely, if something wanders through. Recently we had Tundi, a female leopard, with 3 separate impala kills at one time. While we reposition to get a different view, Taylor has got a spotted animal of a different kind.
We've managed to come across some giraffe that would like to partake in the show today, and they're all staring at us, these young poster boys. Now these are young giraffe bulls, the 3 of them, and I'm hoping if we sit here for long enough, they're going to show us something amazing. I'm not going to ruin the surprise just yet. We're going to wait for them to do it again. But isn't that quite amazing how all those heads seem to be coming from one body? Interesting thing. Now look at this. You see how they sort of hitting each other very gracefully with their heads? Isn't this amazing? Now this is called necking, and this is something that you don't often get to see. We normally just speak about it. And this is how a male giraffe fight. Unfortunately, though, for us, this is not a real giraffe fight. These are just young boys sparring, testing each other's strength and learning the various techniques. And I think it's quite funny that there are 3 giraffes swinging their heads at each other's. I've only ever seen 2 giraffe, as it should be. But because they're young boys, they sort of are just playing around. Like I said, it's nothing serious. But as graceful as it looks when these 3 swing their heads away, what I want you to do is I want you to imagine in your head a rope with a weight of almost 100 pounds, maybe just over 100 pounds. Now imagine if you swung that rope with that weight dangling on the end and you hit somebody with it, it would hurt. Now that blow, if in the right position, would be enough to kill a giraffe. So as graceful as what it looks, when the big boys do it, they swing their heads at quite a speed. And obviously it takes lots and lots of practice to be able to get the right spot. And obviously they normally try and go for the chill, going to get stuck and tied together. And I love how they just stop and pause every now and then and have a little glance at us. Isn't that amazing? Look how they're all standing with their legs spread. See, they haven't quite worked out how to balance themselves just yet. So they do splay their legs nice and wide, just in case they don't fall out. Oh, how was that maneuver? Very nice. It was something very much like the Matrix, being able to dodge bullets, but here they're able to dodge each other's heads. And now you can see perfectly why those ossicones are positioned on their heads and why the males have much broader and thicker ossicones than the females do. Oh my goodness, he almost wrapped his head right around the other one. There we go. They're getting better and better as we watch, and they'll do this quite frequently. Oh, and there's a waterbuck also disappearing in the background. You can see his white rump going. There, off he goes, a big male. He perhaps didn't pay for a ticket for the show, and he's been ushered along and told to leave the scene. However, we've got front row seats of this amazing sighting. Look at this. This is the first time in a very long time have I even seen giraffe just sparring with each other. This is beautiful. Now, because they're not doing it properly, you can't really hear much sound to it, but I have been fortunate enough to see 2 big giraffe having a big fight with each other. And at first, I thought it was perhaps an elephant maybe breaking a branch, and indeed it wasn't. That's how loud the sound is as well. When they swing their heads at the full swing and connect with their opponent, it almost sounds like a gunshot or a branch breaking. So Debbie, I love your comment. Thank you so much. Debbie from Vancouver seems to think that I'm the giraffe whisperer today. Well, Debbie, it's about time, because we've had 3 giraffe run away from us at the start of the show. It's now quite pleasant to have 3 giraffe that are now standing still that we are able to watch. Isn't this beautiful? Giving a little shake. Now you'll see them shaking their heads quite often and stretching their heads up towards the sky, pointing their noses towards the sky. And I can imagine it can be quite painful when they are practicing as well. Not anything that's going to cause any serious injuries, of course, but I'm sure they get a bit of a headache every now and then, or perhaps a sore neck like a bruise. But they're not too bothered. Don't you think it's amazing how they're able to move their heads? Right, now, we're actually going to head to an ad break, so don't go too far, otherwise you might miss too much action. But let's have one last look at these giraffe before we disappear. Now, like James always loves to say, I love his line that he uses. I'm learning lots and lots from James, helping him out in the tent. We are obviously not really on an ad break. This is all just for practice, just like what the giraffe are doing. Practicing. Practice makes perfect. Come on, give a swing. I sort of think this is a little bit unfair, of course, because normally both opponents will have an opportunity just to focus on one other opponent, but when you've got 3 and you are being ganged up on, I think that's a little bit unfair. But it seems as though they're taking turns. Now you can see the one on the left is slightly younger than the others. Isn't this amazing? I can even hear some elephants. So what we've been watching as they swing their heads around, we almost see them as go into a giraffe twist of some sort. Now, Victor, I know you're wondering what happens if they get their sort of necks in a knot. Now, I don't think that's possible to get their necks tied in a knot. We often see I've forgotten how to speak today. Apologies. Obviously, my solar panel didn't get enough sunlight and the batteries are dying. Now, we normally see fights with the antelope, and particularly the kudu, where their horns get stuck together and they can't untwist, and unfortunately they end up dying most of the time. But luckily for a giraffe, there's no such thing as a giraffe neck knot, I suppose you could call it. That's a bit of a tongue twister if you say that 30 times. Giraffe neck knot, giraffe neck knot. Be quite difficult. Here we go. Going to have another go. Now, it's very graceful what they're doing. Like I said, when you see a proper fight, you will see chopping. So if you know horses or anything like that, they'll be chopping with their front legs and trying to injure their opponent to the best of their ability. And anyway, that's quite funny how they take turns with each other and gang up. There we go. Now it's the one in the middle's chance, right? You were ganging up on the other one at the back. Serves you right. Oh, there we go. That was a great shot. This is amazing. Oh, wow, they're really going. They've really got into the swing of things now once they've got the rhythm. You see how that giraffe is also tucking his tail between his legs? He's trying to protect the sensitive bits, which is very clever of him. Now changing their position up. And when the giraffe fight, you never see them standing face to face. You always see them just putting their bodies next to each other. You can see the one in the middle, obviously got a bit of a sore head. You can see he's not happy. Look at his sort of reaction. He's going, I'm not playing anymore, I'm out. There, see the other one on the right, stretching his head up. Like I said, it can be a little bit sore, and sometimes I need to just stretch it out. It's as if you perhaps twisted your ankle a little bit. You know, you sort of roll your ankle around, try and loosen the muscles up. Isn't this amazing? I'm so fascinated that finally, after many, many months of not witnessing something amazing like this, today was the day. Isn't that amazing? Now, let's go back to James, who's going to show you the skeleton of a giraffe.
Mute. Oh, gosh. Yours, David? No, I didn't mute. Okay, how's that? Okay, it's back. Never mind. Everybody, I'm just going to be a slightly disembodied voice until we come back to TV. I want to show just the horns quickly, because, of course, you were watching that incredible fighting going on. I'll come in there, Dave. Tell me when you're ready. 20 seconds to TV, everybody. Here we go. There we go. 5 seconds, everybody. I hope you're not nervous. Welcome back, everybody, to live safari from the western fringes of the Great Kruger National Park. My name is James Henry. Stef is out on foot. He's been with elephants, Taylor's with some giraffe, and Jamie is with Tingana, the male leopard. It's a wonderful afternoon. It is quite sort of cloudy, but there's this air of expectancy of perhaps rain later on that will break this drought. You're most welcome. You are the most important part of the safari, so please do send us your questions and comments. #SafariLive. Now, you were looking at those giraffe. They were having a fight. I don't want to flog a dead horse or a dead giraffe. We have looked at the skull before, but just have a quick, I just wanted you to quickly see the ends, the horns. And there they are. And you can see that they've become totally calcified. That means they've got harder, they've got bigger through the course of all the fighting that this old giraffe did during the course of his life. Well done, Gerald. Right, let's put Gerald down here. That's not really why we came here. I wanted to show you, again, the size of the animal. And for me, living out here in the wild, I am constantly reminded of how small and insignificant we are as human beings. Physically, that is. Obviously, we have the biggest brains, and that's the only thing going for us in terms of how we defend ourselves out here. You saw Stef using his brains a lot earlier on. This, everyone, is the foreleg of a giraffe. And look, I'm not a tall man, but still, this is pretty impressive, I think you have to say. Here we have the humerus, and down here the radius and the ulna. That's the elbow of the giraffe there, and down there you would have basically the fused fingers, the fused metacarpals, if you like. Those are the bones of your hand that are fused into one big bone there. So this is about, well, 6 foot, probably 6'7" or so. That's just up to the shoulder height. Right, Taylor's giraffe are back at it with each other. Let's go and take a look.
If you missed all the action earlier, you're just in luck, because we've got these 3 lovely giraffe bulls, some young bulls, fighting with each other. And of course, not real fighting. This is just sparring, and this is called necking. And what I was looking at, look at that, isn't that amazing? You should really try and see if you can perhaps get a screenshot when they sort of pretzel themselves together. That is quite unique. I still cannot get over that. I've never seen 3 young giraffe sort of sparring with each other. It's quite spectacular. It's definitely more impressive when there are more than 2 of them. Oh, wow, look at that. There we go. That's beautiful. I'm sure they probably would prefer some more, what type of comments? What is the word I'm looking for, Brian? I'm calling them beautiful and all sorts of strange things. Right, let's go back to Ronald. Now, Ronald's got a new friend.
Henry ain't giving any action today, but Ronald has another friend. Have a look at this. There's an elephant coming to say hello to Ronald, and Ronald now is, of course, in deeply mortal danger. Luckily, Ronald is inanimate, and he doesn't quite realize. Now, what this elephant's doing is smelling. It can smell human. It might push Ronald over, but what it won't do is stand on Ronald unintentionally. It might kick him over. Ha! Yeah, no. He's... That's Ronald's view, everybody. There he is. You can see him on the damn camera. Let's see if he's still mobile. Oh, dear. No, he's faded. He's turning round. He's turning, but we've got no picture. I think the camera's been kicked. Ah, no. Look, I'll just quickly, just keep on Ronald there. I'll just see if I can drive him away from the water's edge. There we are. He is still mobile, everybody. Oops. I don't know what happened there. Anyway, so that was Ronald's experience with the elephant. Now, he's had an amazing time with elephants, and we have 2 through him. We're often asked why it is that elephants don't, or how it is that they don't stand on their calves. And in the big herds, often you have tiny elephants, not more than sort of, 2.5, 3 feet off the ground, and these huge leviathans walking all around them. And never do they get stood on. And they are so aware of what's underneath them. And we've watched Ronald underneath a herd of elephants. They've all decided that he's no harm to them, and they just walk around him. It's unbelievable how sensitive their feet are. Anyway, we'll try and get him back and find out what's going on with Ronald, comfort him, send him back out into the fray. Meanwhile, let's go and take a look at Red Dam with Jamie and Tingana.
Oh dear, poor Ronald. I do hope that he is okay. Meanwhile, Tingana's doing his best possible impression of Ronald, lying on his side, looking thoroughly relaxed. And who could blame him with a belly that full? Those of you who've perhaps eaten a bit too much every now and again on a large family lunch, or perhaps some kind of holiday, you'll know exactly how he feels. That lazy, exhausted feeling. You can see he's also panting still. We were talking about that earlier, and the fact that they do pant to cool down. He's breathing fast, so he's doing a little bit of cooling down through his nasal passages. Other than that, his tongue is inside. It's not too hot this afternoon, and it's actually getting gradually cooler. He's moved away a little bit from Red Dam and found himself a nice, safe spot on a termite mound, or next to a termite mound. And it just makes sense for him to be slightly away from the water's edge itself. Of course, the water attracts not just prey animals, but also other predators. And the last thing he wants to do, for example, is sleep right next to the water and find himself in the path of hungry lions, for example. So he's quite happily settled here, just a little bit further away. It's amazing that natural instinct that these animals have to keep themselves safe. Right now, he could not look concerned at all. Now, the name Tingana, for our new viewers, the name Tingana means shy. And interestingly enough, funnily enough, it used to be Shadow's name until Tingana entered the scene, and there was a bit of a switch around with all of the different names of the leopards of this area. But Tingana, when he initially arrived here, was a shy leopard. And it goes down to a very, very important lesson on the ethical guiding that's been approached in this area and the way that these animals have been habituated to vehicles. So for our newer viewers that are wondering why we're not afraid or why the animal isn't jumping into our vehicle, well, it's because they're very, very used to us. And I'll go into more detail later. In the meantime, I think let's go to Ronald.
Okay, Ronald's back, and so's his friend. There we have the elephant drinking. You can see the hippopotamus to the right-hand side. And this elephant, I think, is fascinated by Ronald, far more than he is threatened, far more than he is offended. He's curious. He's a youngish elephant bull. Oh, gosh, Ronald, I do hope you're okay, old pal. Look at the elephant's toenails. There's a... Oh, dear. Oh, no. No, stop it! No! That's Ronald's feed there, you can see. That means things are not as they should be. Anyway, listen, this Ronald thing... I'm laughing because the dangerous Russian who does all our tech is going to be very cross with me indeed. I might sleep in the tent. Okay, now, just a quick bit of background to Ronald. It's a different way of engaging with the wild. It's obviously completely inanimate, but he does move. He has the scent of human beings. Now, elephants can get irritated. I said that that elephant wasn't offended by him. I was obviously entirely mistaken because that elephant was offended by him and he's kicked him into the water. It's not ideal, I must confess. Let's have a quick look at the dam cam. Oh, dear. Right, okay, well, at least he's not being leaked on. Yeah. Anyway, oh, God, oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, I thought I was going to do precisely the opposite. Now I'm really, oh, no. Sorry, Alex. I'm in a lot of trouble now. I'm so sorry, everybody. Right, anyway, so Ronald, that's a deal I'll deal with Alex later. I'll probably sleep out where Stef is now. I feel quite nauseous. So Ronald's, his modus operandi is to get a different view of the wilderness and to interact in a slightly different way. And obviously today was not a particularly effective way for him to have interacted with the wilderness, but a great view nevertheless. Let's head back to Tingana for now, and I will try and placate Rasputin the Russian.
Oh dear, poor Ronald, what a disaster. It's definitely not the way that Ronald's afternoon was meant to go. In the meantime, somebody else is having a much nicer afternoon and is now... Oh. I was about to say is about to get up, but most definitely not. I think we might need to do some maneuvering to get us a better view in a moment, but for now, we've got a view of the beautiful golden fur of this leopard and his massive neck and shoulders. He really is a top-heavy. There is a huge difference in size between the female and the male leopards. The males are basically twice the size of the females. So whilst Tingana is roughly 80 kilograms, so around, actually over 170 pounds, the females are a little bit smaller than that, usually sitting at around an average of 50 kilograms, so about 110 odd pounds. So considerable difference in size. Now, I was talking earlier about why the animals are not dangerous or do not jump into our vehicles. I think that's a bad way of phrasing it. I think that saying they're not dangerous is not a good way of saying it. They can be dangerous. They're wild animals, and we should never forget that. That being said, they're not out to get us in any way. They don't see us in the vehicle as prey, and because they've been treated very, very carefully by different human beings, they are very comfortable with the presence of the vehicle in their space. Right. Let's reposition so we can get a nice view of Mr. T's head. Hopefully. Oh, hold on. The game has changed. What you going to do, boy? I'm just going to sit here for one moment just to see where he decides to go. There's no point in heading off in one... There we go, he's up. And he's back down again. That's more convenient, mister. Look at those incredible grey-green eyes of his. Each and every leopard has an individual eye colour, a unique eye colour. You can recognize them just by looking into their eyes after a while. Mvula, for example, another dominant male of this leopard of this area, has got bright blue eyes rather than this sort of greyish bottled green. And each and every individual, I know that James was speaking about leopard spot patterns before, each and every single individual has a completely unique look. Their spots are like fingerprints. And for us, after a while, seeing them regularly, they become very, very easy to identify. It's almost like recognizing your neighbor, your friend, your colleague at work. Each one has a completely individual face, provided you've spent enough time with them, of course. That doesn't come overnight. I think I'm still going to reposition. I think I'm going to work on the assumption that he's actually going to go that way. If he does go anywhere, I think he's going to go that way. Let's give it a go. Try and reposition to see him. Find ourselves a nice spot. Which means you might have to hang on to your hats for the moment as we duck under branches. Actually, I think that's a much better idea. While we reposition, why don't you go across to Taylor, the giraffe whisperer?
I just can't get enough of these three gentlemen. They really have been absolutely fantastic. When we started off not being able to get a giraffe to stand still, now we can't get them to leave us. Isn't this wonderful? Just in case you've just joined us, my name is Taylor, and of course we've got the thumb. Let's see the thumb, and I want to tell you a little bit about the thumb. You see, it looks very much like a rain cloud. It is starting to drizzle a little bit. So the prediction is true. The thumb knows exactly what's going on. Now, like I said, it's just starting to drizzle a little bit, so we very quickly put our rain covers on. But that's not putting a dampened mood on the giraffe. They seem to still be having a great time. Now, if you see the giraffe that's walking at the back, let's see, he's going to come out now. There you go. He's sort of put his head towards the tree, the one just behind the one that is looking at us. Now that seems to be, he seems to be slightly younger than the others. And we've been watching some interesting interaction while you've been gone. And they seem to be bullying the youngest male, which is quite funny. Now, hopefully we'll be able to see it again, and then I will definitely tell you a little bit more about the giraffe. Now, we are going to go through to another, ad break, so don't disappear for too long. We'll see you shortly. So what I was saying is, you'll see now the giraffe on the left. Like I said, he seems to be the youngest one. Now, I'm a little bit uncertain as to how old these giraffes are. I would guess that they are anywhere between 6 and 8 years old. I don't think they've quite reached about 10. They're quite small in size. So typically a male giraffe can reach about 5.5 meters tall. I need to work on my conversions, and I will practice tonight, and I'll be better tomorrow. And it's quite funny how the two oldest, like I said, are definitely picking out and seem to be squeezing that youngster in the middle. I don't think he's too much younger, maybe about a few months, maybe even just a year or so. But you can definitely see on his coat how much lighter in color he is. So the one that we're talking about is the one on the right, and you can see the two on the left are definitely darker in color. Even their ossicones seem to be slightly broader, and that's what happens as they get older. The color increases, so they get a lot darker, and then of course those ossicones start to broaden out quite nicely. So if you see the camera moving, it's me swatting a fly that's trying to disappear up my nasal cavity, which I'm refusing to let it do. No, go away now. Off you go, shoo fly. But they seem to have settled down. I think we got here just at the right moment when we were watching them bash each other about. Now, if you have a look at those wonderful legs, very much like a horse's leg, so you can see the big round bits just above their hooves, that is the fetlock, and then of course they've got that joint which is very much like a knee, I suppose. And like I said, when they get older, their shin normally becomes quite sort of calcified. It's big scabbing, and it almost looks like they have a armor plating on their front knees, and they do indeed kick. Sorry, Kirsty, I've forgotten completely who asked that question. It slipped my mind. Christine, you were wondering, do giraffe kick? Now they do. Now they chop very, very well, like I said, and that's what often causes that callousing on the front of their legs. And then, of course, those powerful hindquarters, which they often try and double barrel with. And we see that quite often when we see lions trying to jump on the backs of giraffe. If they get it at the right spot, that can cause a serious injury for the lions. But I think they've had enough now. I think playtime is over. It seems as though they're moving away, moving into the thicket, perhaps to feed and get out of the rain. It's not too heavy though, it's just little spits and splatters. But I hope you enjoyed the giraffe, because I really did. It was quite amazing. They now just seem to be staring off into the distance. Like I said, perhaps moving up towards the bank, and they're going to go and have some dinner. Right, I think we're going to move on from the giraffe now. Like I said, I hope you enjoyed that, but let's go back to Jamie and Mr. Tingana.
Well, Taylor moves away from the giraffe in a rare treat. In this particular location, we don't have to go anywhere. And we can actually sit with Tingana, as far as I can tell, for as long as we like. We have him all to ourselves, and what a stunning afternoon it has been. A reunion with Tingana after a good few weeks' absence. Look at that, he really does look like he swallowed a beach ball, doesn't he? They're incredibly comfortable. I was speaking about the fact that his name was his name means shy, and how shy he used to be. No more. He's obviously become very, very used to vehicles over the course of the years that he's been living in the Sabi Sands, being tracked and viewed by various guest vehicles. And now at this point you can drive next to Tingana. He doesn't even look at you when he's asleep. He is so comfortable in our presence, which is it is a true privilege that we are at that point. Sorry, I've gone quiet for a moment. I'm just listening to alarm calls of go-away birds. There is a nesting pair of Wahlberg's eagles, which is why I'm looking off in this direction. There's a nesting pair of Wahlberg's eagles that flies around here, and I was hoping that they might be around, but I don't think so. So we can go back to checking out Tingana, who looks thoroughly comfortable and almost like velvet, before our imaginary television audiences return. Here we go, curled with a very delicate one foot over the other. I love that pose. Puffing away. Those massive feet of his. And you can just see the power in the forelimbs. And what a spectacular afternoon this has been here in the Greater Kruger National Park area of South Africa. My name is Jamie, and this afternoon I have Liam on camera with me, and we're looking at one of the most amazing leopards of our various animals that we see. Let's have a look at Tingana. For those of you who have just joined us, there he is snoozing away, an absolutely massive dominant male leopard, and he is the leopard, I think, the male leopard that we see most frequently on our live safaris. Definitely a special character. That being said, I haven't seen him for a good few weeks, so it is wonderful to catch up and see how he's doing, and to observe the good condition that he is in. The flies are bugging him. I know the feeling, Tingana. They're bugging me as well. They keep flying into my ears and into my eyes, so I sympathize with you completely. And they are biting stable flies, which is why he's not letting them settle on his skin. You can see his ear flicking, and the odd paw movement every now and again, just those flashes of irritation from our beautiful leopard. But other than that, he is thoroughly content, resting his head against the sandy soil. Now, Tammy, interesting question from you. We were talking before about identifying individual leopards and how familiar they become to us. Now, Tammy would like to know which leopard has the airstrip running down his back. Well, Tammy, I'm going to have to turn to the assistant of some of our viewers that have been watching these live safaris and know these leopards for longer than I've been working here. So for those of you that are familiar with our leopards, there's a suggestion that it might be quarantine with his airstrip down his back. I have only encountered quarantine twice, so it could well be that I missed that particular feature of him. There's an entire possibility that I did. So, for all of you who are familiar with the leopards of the northern Sabi Sands, please let me know which leopard has an airstrip, or the look of an airstrip running down its back. VM, do you know? VM's It is quarantine. Okay, that's conclusive. Conclusive from the man himself, who has spent far more time with quarantine than I have. So gross. The fly went straight into my mouth. At least I caught it, that's true. Let's just look back at the leopard while I attempt to find some water to wash my mouth out with. That was so gross, and it's still flying around. Okay, I'm going to recover myself and rinse my mouth out. And while I do, let's go and see if James has recovered from his loss in the tent.
I have not recovered, everybody, and that is my personal tribute to the Russian. It is, of course, a hammer and sickle, which is a joke in very bad taste, and he's probably going to be even crosser. Now, of course, what would be very nice for Jamie right now is Polyrhynchus, which tastes like a little lemon drop. Unfortunately, Polyrhynchus I have lost since I had her last. Now, I have something quite astounding to show you, and a little bit like Tingana, I suppose, the heart of this creature I'm going to show you is beating quite fast. Have a look at this. It's a caterpillar, and if you look very carefully, you can see the beating of its long-chambered heart, which runs along the top, just under the skin there, and you can see it beating. Can you see that? Ba-boom, ba-boom. And what it's pumping is something called hemolymph, which is the equivalent of our blood. It's green mostly, though, and it's being pumped all the way around this caterpillar's body. Now, what I will do is take this out from under the microscope, and I'll show you the of this caterpillar. What it's done, this is since yesterday. We caught this caterpillar yesterday, and we put it in the jar with some leaves because there were some eggs here. But what it has done is created a little silken home for itself in amongst the leaves. Isn't that cool? So it's pulled all of these leaves together with sticky silk, and that's where it's hoping to stay safe. And we will release it. We're not going to keep it until it pupates. Well, maybe we should keep it until it pupates and find out what it is. Anyway, if you have any questions, remember, #SafariLive. You can talk to us in the tent in the same way that you can talk to us, talk to any of the others. Now, Haley, you're wondering about the skull on the top with the big black horns. Well, Haley, thank you very much for asking, mainly because I really like to show off my little shelf of death. Here we have a wildebeest. This is a blue wildebeest, a very large bull, blue wildebeest, and he's been bleached. He was professionally prepared, and that's what he is, basically. And you can just compare him. I know some people sometimes mistake them for buffalo, but here is an enormous buffalo bull, and you can see a huge amount heavier. And remember, I don't know if you remember that Jamie was telling you very early on that the top of the horns here gets rubbed away, and there you can see that on that skull. Now, I became slightly tongue-tied there because Jamie is having herself quite an astounding afternoon. There seem to be lovers in the offing.
Can you believe it? It's just one of those amazing things that whenever you sit somewhere in the bush for an extended period of time, amazing things happen. For our new viewers, this is a completely different leopard, and her name is Shadow, and she's just popped out of nowhere. I had no idea she was here. This is absolutely incredible. Her timing could not have been more perfect. I'm going to have to leave this sighting in the next few minutes, but hopefully... Oh, he had his head up earlier. Now he's gone back to sleep again. Well, hopefully, the two lovebirds might reunite once again. I have to tell you that the last time I saw a Shadow and Tingana encounter, or one of the last times I saw a Shadow and Tingana encounter, he had, to be fair to Tingana, he had just been chased by a lion up a tree and managed to safely come down. But the last time I actually witnessed it, Tingana ran away from Shadow. Oh, and there she goes, slinking down into the ravine. Remember how I said earlier I hear alarm calls, and that it didn't sound like the sort of normal, it sounded frantic from the go-away birds. I thought it was the Wahlberg's eagles. They knew something I didn't, and that was that Shadow's around. Now, where's she going? He's over here, my dear. This side, this way. Our female leopards in estrus, or in heat, as it's also known, can be quite relentless in their pursuit of their male suitors. They're often searching around. Look, I don't think she knows he's here. She also looks quite full, like she has she's recently eaten. Now what? What to do? Where to go?
Lumbering straight east. Don't know, she just want to make a loop around towards Tingana, maybe.
Copy that, thank you. Sorry, everybody, just have to chat on the Game Drive channel. I'm going to do some repositioning and decide whether or not Shadow's just doing a loop on her way to Tingana. I'm trying to just keep an eye on where she is. While I do that, let's head across to Stef and a millipede.
Have a look at this. One of the first of the arthropods that are out after the rain and into the changing of the seasons into our spring. This is a millipede, meaning 1,000 legs, and you can just have a look at how it got its name. Just have a look at all those fantastic legs. 2 per segment, except for the first 4 segments and the last 1 segment. Look at that. A detritivore. They eat fungus, they eat algae, and basically just burrow their way through the undergrowth. Just have a look at the size of this one, almost as long as my hand. Reluctant to get onto my fingers today. For some reason, those antennae on the top, let's see if I can gently persuade him or her. Look at that, tasting with those antennae in the front. That's how they sense their environment around them. She can obviously, or he can obviously sense that my fingers are not lunch. Let's have a look at those ripples of those legs. They can move backwards, exactly the same way that they go forwards. Just have a look at that. Generally, it's not a good idea to stick your hand underneath these stumps. You don't quite know what's hiding at the bottom of these stumps. And we find lots of widow spiders here as well. And they love these dark, parallel surfaced stumps. Just have a look at this. Tasting. Imagine how sensitive. What picture is this millipede generating from the front of its head? Those chemical receptors there in the front, tasting the environment. Doesn't like my fingernail. Wow, what an afternoon it's been for us. We haven't found not another single track of those lions that we started the show off looking for. And it looks like they've given us the slip, unfortunately. It's just one of those things that lion do, but we have had a brilliant day for elephant, I must be honest with you. There's been an elephant around every bush, basically. On that note, and while I get myself out of this tree that I'm hung up in, we're going to send you over to James in the tent.
I must say I'm very surprised that those lions weren't found. We tracked them this morning as well. I don't think they would have gone far, but that's how it goes out here. You don't always find what you want, but you often find things that, well, they're unusual. Over here, we've got the exoskeleton of a millipede, and that has been devoured by a scorpion and left as detritus. This is chitin, which is almost completely inedible, and we'll have a quick look at it under the microscope. There it is. Not particularly impressive under the microscope. Anyway, we probably won't try that again. Marvellous. Okay, everybody, it's been wonderful having you with us. We're going to hand you over to Jamie for the last few minutes from no, not from Ronald. Hopefully Ronald will see you next time. Until then, bye-bye and stay safe.
What an amazing scene has played out in front of us here right next to Red Dam on Arathusa. Shadow's gone to lie down in those thickets, so that's where she is at the moment. Tingana, in the meantime, is here, still pretty much in this, adopting the same position he has spent most of the afternoon in. That being said, he did just call once again. I think that there is a good chance, no, I don't think, I know that Shadow knows he's here. I'd actually sort of forgotten that he had called earlier, so I was wondering whether or not Shadow had worked out exactly where he was. Well, now she knows for certain. Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to have time to see the reunion between our two beloved leopard characters. It could be quite interesting. I'd be very curious to see whether or not Tingana would go dashing off into the distance. That being said, there's a good chance that by tomorrow morning, if they stay here on Arathusa or go on to Djuma, we could have our mating leopards once again. That is definitely something to look forward to. Shadow is still lying down. I've been listening with half an ear to the game drive comms, so I do know that she is still lying down in that drainage line. So it could actually take a long time for her to make her approach to Tingana. But until then, we'll just have to wait for whatever mysteries unfold during the evening and solve them tomorrow morning on the sunrise safari. I don't think anybody, either of them, is in a hurry to initiate this reunion, but it could well happen very, very soon. Oh, on that note, I think we are slowly but surely reaching the end of our sunset safari. It's time to do our goodbyes and our thank yous. So a big thank you to VM for his wonderful camera work as always, as well as to the entire Safari Live crew. Most importantly, a big thank you to all of you. Let's finish off our sunset safari with a view of this gorgeous male leopard, as it is time to say our goodbyes. It would not be the same without all of you joining us on the back of the Safari Live vehicle. So we do thank you for your questions and your comments, and I hope you're all very excited to have been reunited with one of our main leopard characters. And as I said, we will be spending, well, we certainly will be spending a lot of the morning searching for this leopard pair. Awesome, Tingana. What a spectacular way to finish off. Well, I don't think I could have said it better than Tingana. On that note, goodbye everybody. Have a wonderful day.